Steve the Amateur Historian, prepared to bring you a fresh episode of Historic Murders of Portland, but alas, there's only one convenient way for me to get to where I need to be at to tell this story. And that, alas, is going through this damn tunnel again. I have like 2 or 3 other things I want to film today that they're all over here, and there's no real convenient way to get across here except to go through here or go up here and dodge traffic. Certainly been tagged up a lot. A lot can happen. Funny thing is, I saw like a family and their little kid behind me. I'm like, they're not coming through here, are they? Please tell me they're not coming this way. Okay. Not waiting to murder me? Yeah, we made it. Yeah. All right, now we can start getting down to brass tacks, namely murder. And fortunately, not me getting murdered. We're going back to 1911 on a new episode of Historic Murders of Portland. And they did. That family that was behind me and their little kid was only like 3. They were coming in that tunnel after me. Why would you take a child into that tunnel? I'm pretty sure their child wasn't wearing shoes. I hope they picked their kid up. Anyway, for our sake, it's February 27th, 1911. We are in Southwest Portland, the part of Southwest Portland that's kind of generally just referred to as South Portland. There was a home here owned by a man named Nick Tamino. Nick Tamino. It's got a nice ring to it. And he lived on Hood Avenue, which Hood Avenue, I'm assuming, you know, a lot of streets look different, but it's more the stuff that's built along the streets. Maybe they've been repaved a few times, but I'm pretty dead certain that Hood Avenue, probably as much as any other street in this town, looks about as astonishingly different today from what it did in 1911. It's probably just about any street in this town. And also, according to the information I got, the house would have been at Hood and Gibbs. Well, I guess you just see Gibbs. There we go. I can't, never mind. That was a bad idea. I just looked into the sun. Anyway, Hood and Gibbs, which again, Hood is probably a street kind of like this stretch here. You know, just residential. And Nick Tamino's house was there, you know, right at the intersection of Hood and Gibbs. I don't know whether it would have been on the north or south side of Gibbs, but it was on the east side of Hood. I know that much. Here's another interesting thing is we're literally right under the lines that take the whatever it is up to OHSU up there. Gibbs runs directly underneath it. So you might see one of those. Oh yeah, there's one of them leaving right now. Anyway, yeah, this is actually Hood Avenue. It's kind of really just like it's like an off-ramp to an on-ramp to the freeway. It's not even really like its own street anymore. Yeah, see, there's one of the cars up there taking people up. So yeah, you can see Hood Avenue, which actually only runs for a very short stretch through here. It kind of verts off of a road over here, goes down through here, and see, it just kind of merges. It's just kind of lanes merging together, and it just kind of runs like this for a little bit, and then kind of merges with the freeway. So it's really just kind of an on-ramp nowadays. So nothing like what it would have looked like in 1911. So Nick Tamino's house would have been on the opposite side of Hood from where I am right now, but generally at its intersection with Gibbs Street. So it would have been right over there somewhere once upon a time. And on the afternoon and carrying over into the evening of February 27th, 1911, Nick Tamino was having a christening for a child he'd recently had. There was reportedly at least 40 people there. So a very large crowd gathered for this. A lot of witnesses, which oddly enough kind of threw everything astray in this story. And one of the people who's present at this christening is a guy named Dominic Bonnelli. Dominic Bonnelli, it makes sense that he's there because by this point in February, he'd been living with the Taminos for about a year. He was rooming with them. So it made sense that he would be there on this blessed occasion. And as the festivities are going on, and you know, it's 1911, everyone likes to get good and drunk. Yeah, nice car, dude. So despite the fact that everyone loved a good drink back in 1911 Portland, you know, there's a christening going on over here. Maybe you have a few drinks, but you dial it back a little bit. You'd think. But Dominic Bonnelli, there they are. They're going after the killer. Never mind, that's an ambulance. I was like, 1911, it's 111 years later, they're finally after the killer. But Dominic Bonnelli, at this christening, he decides to get good and liquored up, as you do at a christening for a new baby. And Nick Tamino gets a little fed up with it. He tells Benelli, stop drinking, you're cut off. You're in my house. I'm telling you now, you're not getting any more liquor here. So, Dominic Bonnelli gets a little annoyed. He's already drunk, so he's probably a little bit belligerent. He decides to leave the house. Him and actually a couple of other guys leave with him, but they're not going to be gone very long. They decide to leave, but they're leaving so that they can get their own booze and then come back. I guess the attitude is, if Nick Tamino says you can't drink anymore, it's more like he was saying you can't have any more of the booze in my house. So they're like, fine, I'll get my own. Can't stop me from drinking my own booze, even if it is your house and presumably your rules, and God forbid your child's getting christened, that people would know how to behave somewhat like adults. But again, it's another time. So Benelli and friends leave. They go find the nearest store that's selling booze, or the nearest friend who's got a little extra stashed away somewhere. They get it and they return to Nick Tamino's home. So they return with the intention of we're partying. The drinking shall progress, shall process forth. And this is where things get really strange, because you look at this and you think, this is a case that should easily be able to be resolved with how many people were there. But such was not to be. So shortly after Benelli has returned, he has a bit of an altercation. He minces words with some fellow whose name is not given. I see a shadow. That must mean one of these is passing by. An individual who goes unnamed, and as far as I could gather, remained unnamed. And so there seems to be even more bad blood stirring up. And this isn't Nick Tamino this time, it's some other guy. And shortly after this altercation with this unknown individual, Benelli goes out on the back porch of Nick Tamino's home. He's kind of, I guess, excusing himself from the proceedings. Everyone's pissed at him, so it's like, I might as well go outside here where people won't bother me, and probably where I can enjoy some drink. And presumably, in the presence of up to at least 40 people, 2 shots ring out. Dominic Bonnelli is struck. He falls dead. I mean, pretty much fell dead. He went unconscious almost immediately, but I do believe he was rushed to St. Vincent's Hospital, and he managed to survive technically for several more hours, but he never regained consciousness. So, I mean, it was more or less like he was dead at that point. But all these witnesses, people saw something, but it was almost as if they didn't see a thing. The police report to the scene. They talk to everybody who was there. You know, a couple dozen people. What happened? And everybody is keeping a tight lip on this. Nobody will reveal the identity of the person responsible, even though there's some 40 people at one house. Even if a lot of them were distracted, they're talking, they're in other areas, a couple of people should have seen what happened and seen who had done it. And some people had, because a couple people the police spoke to literally said that the individual responsible for the shooting was the same guy, the same unnamed guy that Benelli had words with earlier. And that shortly after the shooting, this guy kind of intermingled his way into the crowd and was asking people to keep their mouths shut about it. And people agreed to. Everyone agreed to not reveal the identity of this guy. I mean, it's insane. That many people trying to keep a secret. And they did. I mean, I looked ahead. The last article I found on this matter was from a couple of months later, and the matter had not yet been resolved. But an important detail to know, to understand, is that this was like exclusively Italian people that were at this party. And this area, there's a lot of I mean, there was, you know, people from various nations all over the place down here, but there was a real melting pot down here south of downtown. And one of those major populations was Italian people. And there was a particular part of Portland that was once known as Little Italy. And so you have a bunch of people that are kind of, you know, they're more dedicated to each other than they are in helping law enforcement. And you know, it starts opening up these possibilities. Like, was there something really screwy about Dominic Bonnelli? He lived with the Taminos for a year. There apparently was no bad blood. There was no issues. There was no ongoing arguments, fights, problems. It just seemed like he drank a little bit. And while law enforcement kind of got, or at least followed, the idea that this shooting was the result of, you know, some drunken brawl gone awry. Benelli was drunk. This unknown person was probably also drunk. After the argument, this guy got mad and shot him. I mean, that certainly did happen in Portland. But still, somebody shoots someone and a bunch of people see it. You think they would tell the police. Why wouldn't they? Their only incentive would be to that they were in, excuse me, fly just flew in my mouth, or at my mouth. There would be either they have a staunch desire to protect the guilty party, or they either didn't care or had some incentive in seeing Dominic Bonnelli shuffle off this mortal coil. So there was some contemplation while, you know, law enforcement kind of felt, it's probably just a drunken brawl, that's all. I know one newspaper said, you know, all these people are cooperating. It seemed like it was this quick shooting done, and this guy gets everybody so quickly to agree to not spill the beans on who's responsible. One newspaper looked at those and said that they theorized that this may have been some kind of vendetta. There was some objective to want to kill Dominic Bonnelli. I do not know what that objective would have been, but that was another possibility that captured people's attention. Because otherwise, why do almost 40 people, you know, they gave some information, but for the most part, they didn't really say anything. At least nothing of evidentiary value. And that was really why this case sat here and lingered unsolved for so long, was everybody agreed to keep quiet. And it seems not one person broke their silence afterwards, because I found no verification that there was a resolution to this case. And if there's no resolution, well, then nobody talked, because some people saw the killer. The only thing of real interest that came up was about a week after the murder, the police got a card sent to them from someone who only identified themselves as AC. And all it said in the card was, his name is Antonio Figione, or Figione, Figione. I'm trying to say it in a way that sounds Italian. Figione. So the police got that card, but even then when they got that, it was merely assumed that that was related to the Benelli murder. You know, they didn't say Benelli was killed by this guy. It just said it was Figione. Now, it was, you know, only a few days after that murder, so logic stipulated to authorities that this was probably someone maybe trying to push them in the right direction. However, it could have also been somebody trying to intentionally push them in the wrong direction. Could have been somebody at the party that agreed to not reveal the guy's identity and wanted to help push the police in the wrong direction. And yeah, the last I ever saw this case was in a newspaper article from June 10th, 1911. So a couple months down the road, no resolution. And in that June newspaper, that was merely mentioned because that was the day after the infamous Hill murders had happened just south of Portland, where husband, wife, and 2 kids were hatcheted to death. I did an almost 2-hour video on that. You can watch that if you so like. Go very in depth on it. But yeah, it was pretty much that event had happened. That murder to this day has never been officially solved. And so in accordance to that, they posted a list of like recent murders that had happened in the Portland area that had gone unsolved. And the most recent one, right there above the hills, was the Dominic Bonnelli murder. And all they really said was, you know, it was February 27th, 1911, and it said that he was killed by an unknown person. And that was pretty much it. Never found any more information about Dominic Bonnelli, Nick Tamino, the mysterious Antonio Figione, again, if I'm saying that right. Nothing. It just faded away. So my guess is it was never solved. But someone at that party shot Dominic Bonnelli dead, seemingly with prejudice. So I don't know. Who do you think was responsible? Because I got nothing. And as Forrest Gump said, that's all I have to say about that. Because there's nothing more to say about a story where a guy's murdered in front of 40 people and nobody gives up the killer. Where do you go from there? What are you gonna do? Police couldn't figure it out. Why is it my job to figure it out? But anyway, due to those circumstances, it seems like Dominic Bonnelli's case was one destined to loom unsolved forever. And at least as far as I've been able to gather, that is exactly how things have played out. So all that said, I'd like to thank you as always for stopping by, taking in today's video. If you're new to the channel or just haven't done it yet, remember to like, share, subscribe to the channel, help my channel grow. You can also hit up my Patreon if you want to help me out that way. Makes doing what I do a lot easier. Thanks in advance. The link to that is in the description with my video, as well as the links to my Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, and my TikTok. Hey, Mount Hood in the background. Anyway, all that said, thanks again for stopping by. Till next time, this has been Steve the Amateur Historian.